A very good morning to all. In the previous class, we discussed how the Britishers they exploited the Indians. Today in this class, we will discuss about the Rowlatt Act and non-cooperation movement. So first we will discuss when the Rowlatt Act was passed, who passed it and why it was passed. Here first we will discuss why the Rowlatt Act was passed, when it was passed and who passed the Rowlatt Act. So first let's discuss why the Rowlatt Act was passed. Rowlatt Act is related to the First World War, and you all know that the First World War started in July 1914 and the Britishers were very much involved in the war. During that time, they also wanted to suppress the political activities in India which were against them. So for this, they passed an act which was known as Defence of India Act 1915, and this act would stay 6 months even after the end of the war. So this act was an emergency criminal act which meant that the Britishers were involved in the First World War, and during that time they also wanted to suppress the political activities in India which were against them. Now, the First World War ended in November 1918 and the Britishers, they knew that after 6 months, the Defence of India Act 1915 would be removed. The Britishers were also fearful of the political activities in India which were against them. So, for this, they set up a committee which was known as Rowlatt Committee. This Rowlatt Committee was under Sir Sidney Rowlatt. So, he was the president of the committee, and this committee was set up to put a stop on the political activities in India against the British rule. So, here the Rowlatt Committee, that is the members of the Rowlatt Committee, they suggested to extend the Defence of India Act 1915 for a long period, and this extension of Defence of India Act 1915 came to be known as Rowlatt Act. Officially, its name was the Anarchical and Revolutionary Crime Act of 1919, but popularly it was known as the Rowlatt Act 1919. Now, let's understand the main aim or the objective of this Rowlatt Act. Here, the main aim or objectives of the Rowlatt Act was to have a control on the political activities in India which were against the British rule. They also wanted to increase the grip or hold on the common people to stop them to begin any new political activities against them. Next, let's understand what was the meaning of this Rowlatt Act. So, according to the Rowlatt Act, the Britishers, they were free to arrest anybody who suspected of any political activities against the British rule without trial and conviction. So, kids, here what do you understand by the word conviction? Conviction means the final decision of the court that someone is found guilty of a crime. So, after passing of this Rowlatt Act, the court was not able to take any decision against the arrest of a person, that is, the arrest was right or wrong. So, after passing of the Rowlatt Act, the Britishers were free to arrest anybody who suspect of any political activities against the British rule without presenting them in the court, and they kept them in custody for up to 2 years. This law also gave the power to the Britishers to search any place without the warrant. That means the Britishers were free to go to any place, to any house to search without the warrant. Next benefit of this Rowlatt Act was that the Rowlatt Act also controlled the Indian press. So, during that period, Indian press, they spread lots of ideas about gaining complete independence. So, after passing of this Rowlatt Act, the freedom of the Indian press was suppressed. They were not allowed to publish anything against the Britishers. So, these were some of the benefits which were given to the Britishers through the Rowlatt Act. Now, after passing of this Rowlatt Act, the Britishers, they started to arrest many Indians, and Indian National Congress opposed it, and here the Rowlatt Act, it came to be known as Black Act by the Indians. Mahatma Gandhi also called for a national-wide hartal on 6th April 1919 and he called for a satyagraha. So, Mahatma Gandhi called for satyagraha, that means an appeal for truth. So, this was about the Rowlatt Act. Next, we will discuss about the non-cooperation movement. So, here the non-cooperation movement was launched between the year 1920 to 1922. This non-cooperation movement was organized by Mahatma Gandhi and the concept of this movement was based on a book which was written by Mahatma Gandhi. The name of the book was Hind Swaraj and it was published in the year 1909. According to Mahatma Gandhi, the British rule established in India only because of the cooperation of the Indians. So, if the Indians they refuse to cooperate with the British rule, then the British rule will collapse within a year and India will gain complete independence. So, this ideology of Mahatma Gandhi was accepted by all the Indians and it also inspired many Indians to join the freedom struggle of our country. Now, let us discuss how the people they participated in the non-cooperation movement. Here, Mahatma Gandhi urged people not to pay taxes. As we have already discussed, the poor farmers they were forced to pay taxes even though there were drought and flood. So, here Mahatma Gandhi urged people not to pay taxes. As a result of this non-cooperation movement, the students they started leaving the British schools, institutions and colleges. Even the teachers, lawyers and workers they resigned from their institutions and offices. Next, let us discuss how the common people they participated in this movement. So, in this movement, the Indians they participated by boycotting the foreign goods and foreign clothes. Here, boycotting means refusing to use the foreign goods and foreign clothes were burnt in huge bonfires. Next, the political parties. So, at that time there were many political parties and elections were also held. So, all these Indian political parties they participated in the elections. There were Indian representatives who were elected through these elections, but they were not given full freedom to take any decision against any issues. So, all the final decisions were taken by the Britishers. Now, through this non-cooperation movement, the Indian political parties they decided to boycott the elections and also many rallies were organized and various workers they went on strike. Also, shops were closed. So, all these were the ways through which the people they participated in the non-cooperation movement. Next, we will discuss about the economic impact of non-cooperation movement. We have discussed that the common people they participated in this movement by boycotting the foreign goods and foreign clothes. And we have also discussed that the Britishers they imported their products in India and after boycotting the goods, the import of the foreign goods and foreign clothes was reduced by 50%. That is, the Indian traders they refused to buy these goods from the Britishers and they also refused to sell them in the Indian market. So, because of this the import of foreign goods and foreign clothes it reduced by 50%. So, this was a huge loss to the Britishers. Also, because of the boycott of the foreign clothes, there was an increase in the production of khadi. So, khadi is a hand spun or hand woven cloth from cotton. So, there was an increase in the production of khadi which resulted in the establishment of many industries and factories in India. So, with the support of lot of Indians, this non-cooperation movement became a big challenge to the Britishers. But the movement could not be continued for a long run. So, next let us discuss about the limitations of the non-cooperation movement. So, we discussed that there was an increase in the production of khadi and khadi was very expensive because it required human power. That means we needed many workers to produce khadi products. But the British goods were machine made goods. So khadi was very expensive as compared to the British machine made goods, and the poor Indians, they were not able to afford this expensive khadi. So the Indians, they could not boycott the British machine made goods for a long run. So this was the first limitation. The second limitation was the boycott of British schools, institutions and colleges, because at that time there was no Indian schools, colleges and institutions. So the students, they started joining the British schools, institutions and colleges. Even the people, they also started joining offices. So this was the second limitation. The third limitation was the non-cooperation movement was officially withdrawn or taken back by Mahatma Gandhi in the year 1922, because some Indian protesters or some Indian members of non-cooperation movement became violent on 4th February 1942, and they clashed with the British policemen in Chauri Chaura in Uttar Pradesh. So Chauri Chaura is a place in Uttar Pradesh where the Indian protesters, they became violent and put fire in a police station. And in this incident, 22 policemen were dead. This act was against the principles of Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi took responsibility of this incident and he stopped the non-cooperation movement. So we can say that the end of the non-cooperation movement was in the year 1922, and after this the Britishers, they arrested Mahatma Gandhi and many other Indians. So kids, in this class we discussed about the Rowlatt Act and non-cooperation movement. That's all for today. We'll meet in the next class. Thank you.